All right, Shalom.
Shalom.
Well, the brothers out of Great Millstone, Atlanta. But before we get started, I'm going to give all the glory, infinite praise unto
Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Hakadash.
Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who teach and rule well to oversee the tabernacle of David. Shalom, top sincere brothers pushing, teaching truth across the four corners of the earth. All right, Shalom, top sincere believers. Okay, here with another part 4. Okay, concerning the first Maccabees, man. All right, going into that historic time, and we're in these same times today. Okay, that's what we're relating it to, man. All right, so we're gonna go touch some key points in the chapter 5. All right, and Lord willing, this lesson be edifying, of course, to an elect member or two. All right, we're going to start with the top.
We can start with the top.
This is First Maccabees chapter 5, verse 3. Now,
verse 3.
I mean, verse 1. So like, sure, verse. I got verse 3. Holla.
Okay.
This is verse 1. Now, when the nations round about heard that the altar was built and the sanctuary renewed as before, it displeased them very much.
It displeased the nations that the Israelites were serving their God, Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai. It displeased them. And to this day, when we, so-called blacks, Hispanics, Native Indians, when we profess who we are, when we serve Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, the heathens hate us. You know? Because they understand they can't manipulate us, they can't overcome us and devour us when we're serving our God, because He's rightfully so. We are supposed to be above the nations. So the Lord, He lifts up standards for us. He protects us and heals us from the heathen when we serve Him, and they know that, and that's exactly why they don't want us to serve Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai. Matter of fact, what's that scripture with the Ammonite? He was speaking, I believe it's in Judith, when he says that the children of Israel, if they keep the commandments of the Heavenly Father, there's nothing can overcome them. And you can bring out whatever you got. I'm actually going to try to find that.
I continue on though. Verse 2, wherefore they thought to destroy the generation of Jacob that was among them, and thereupon they began to slay and destroy the people. So as you see today, where we can relate that to, you can correlate that precept that with Psalm chapter 83. These heathen nations have in periods of time in history have always begun to destroy our heritage, man, to attempt to destroy us as a people. But the Lord, of course, has never allowed that to never allow these heathen nations to annihilate us and exterminate us as a nation. All right, verse 3, it reads, then Judas fought against the children of Esau in Idumea at Arabatim, because they besieged Israel and gave them a great overthrow and abated their courage and took their spoils. So here you go once again as another battle of Judas Maccabees, man, the hammer, that main warrior out of the brothers of the sons of Mattathias. All right, let me see if I want to keep going.
You go to verse Baba Kashah. Go to verse 6.
Yeah, we go verse 6. This is verse 6. Afterward, he passed over to the children of Ammon.
Right, because, and we skipped verse 4, which was dealing with the children of being that was leaving a snare for us, and then we burnt their towers because they were killing Israelites in the secret parts. And all of these, what we listed with the Idumeans, the children of being, and the children of Ammon, are when the heathen nations coming up against us to devour us, and we, through self-defense and the power of Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, overcoming them.
Verse 7, so he fought many battles with them, till at length they were discomfited before him, and he smote them. And we had taken Jazer with the towns belonging thereunto, he returned into Judea.
Right. Let's see here. Oh yeah, you can go ahead and keep going.
Verse 9. Then the heathen that were at Gilead assembled themselves together against the Israelites that were in their quarters to destroy them, but they fled to the fortress of Dathema. And sent letters unto Judas and his brethren, the heathen that are round about us are assembled together against us to destroy us.
All right, so you have to keep in mind, these circumstances are going to befall the children of Israel again. You're going to physically have these heathen nations. That's why the scripture says, never trust thine enemy.
Right.
Because, you can be thinking you cool with a so-called Chinese or Japanese or Korean or Arab or a so-called white person, but they're your enemy. It's via prophecy and via bloodline.
Yeah.
Via heavens. Go ahead.
This is Isaiah 59, verse 19. So shall they fear the name of the Lord from the west, and his glory from the rising of the sun. When the enemy shall come in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord shall lift up a standard against him. See, hey, there you have it, man. The enemy is going to come in like a flood. You see, the scriptures just say in the Maccabees, you're round about, man. It's like they're surrounded, man. It's going to come in. It's going to be very heavy, man. You're going to have no choice. Hey, we won't have no choice. That's why we said before in previous videos, it's going to be much more spiritual intervention this time, man. We're going to need that standard to be lifted, man. We're not mighty like the Maccabees were to defend ourselves, man. We're gonna need Michael the Archangel to stand up for us in these times, man.
Even they didn't do those powers.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't do those works by themselves.
Right.
It was divine intervention on their behalf.
Right.
You read many times in Maccabees when certain Hellenistic kings or generals were about to come into the temple, threaten to destroy the temple, seek to defile the temple and destroy Judea, and numbers that very much outnumber the Israelites. Yeah. 6-1, 7-1, 10-1. The Judas Maccabees, his last battle, I believe it was 300 of them against tens of thousands upon tens of thousands of Grecians and heathens, which he went out honorably. You got it.
We want to continue on. Verse 11, 1 Maccabees chapter 5, verse 11. And they are preparing to come and take the fortress whereunto we are fled, Timothy being captain of their host. Come. We can go down a little bit. We go down to verse 15. Or what? 14. Down verse 14. While these letters were yet reading, behold, there came other messengers from Galilee with their clothes rent, who reported on this wise and said, they of Ptolemais and of Tyrus and Zidon and all Galilee of the Gentiles are assembled together.
Of the Gentiles. These heathen nations came together, and so it's many different accounts. So it's circumstances where in Gilead, Israelites were being persecuted, and dealing, I believe, in Tyrus and Zidon, or in all of Galilee. You see, which the Israelites were living amongst the Gentiles. Right. That's why you had Israelites being called Gentiles. What does it say in book of John, chapter 7, verse 35? Where, or if it says, where may he go? Where is he going to go? Where should he go? To the Jews amongst the Gentiles and teach the Gentiles?
Yeah, that's what he said.
And that's why you have to understand the circumstances of the Hellenistic period.
Exactly, because you can't understand the Gentile mystery unless going through the Apocrypha. Let's go through these accounts that we're going into. You must go into this to prove, or to convince, the unlearned.
That's right.
I'll finish it off. And it's verse 15. It says, they of Ptolemais and of Tyrus and Zidon and all Galilee of the Gentiles are assembled together against us to consume us. Now when Judas and the people heard these words, they assembled a great congregation together to consult what they should do for their brethren that were in trouble and assaulted of them. Right,
and what took place, to sum it up quickly, is Judas took a host, I believe, roughly like 8,000, and Simon, his brother, took a host of roughly about 3,000. They went to their prospective provinces to deliver the Israelites. You can go to verse 23.
Down to verse 23.
verse 23.
Verse 23. And
verse 21.
21. Then went Simon into Galilee, where he fought many battles with the heathen, so that the heathen were discomfited by him. And he pursued them unto the gate of Ptolemais and there was slain of the heathen about 3,000 men, whose spoils he took.
Yep, the 3,000 men slaughtered by the Israelites of old. Right, Simeon and his host.
Yeah. Okay. Verse 23, and those that were in Galilee and Arbedes with their wives and their children and all that they had took he away with him and brought them into Judea with great joy.
Right, and now he delivered the Israelites that were being persecuted. But they try to look at us, they try to paint us as being the bad guy. When we are the persecuted, we are the distressed, we are the forsaken by this world, yet not forgotten, remembered, Zechariah, remembered by Yahweh, by Jimmy Shad.
Verse 24, Judas Maccabees also and his brother Jonathan went over Jordan and traveled 3 days' journey in the wilderness, where they met with the Nabathites.
Which with the Nabathites, which is going to the Nabateans. All right, the Nabateans, which scholars say were the inhabitants of the city of Petra. All right, which borders the land of Edom. It's in that same vicinity of the land of Edom, which modern day Jordan. All right, where you had the Arabs, you had the Edomites living in that vicinity. All right, and you had the Israelites. As you see, he went through the wilderness journey because Petra was close to Israel.
Yeah. You know? And the scriptures just back your point up with Esau. He said, because you said it was fighting Esau and Idumea and at Arabatine, you know, and then over to Jordan. So that is just pinpoint those locations.
Right. And you have to understand geography. You have to understand geopolitics of the times of old to be able to grasp the scriptures through the Spirit, you know.
Verse 25, where they met with the Nabathites, who came unto them in a peaceable manner and told them everything that had happened to their brother in the land of Gilead.
Right. You know, it came to them in a peaceable manner. So, if you ask me, you know, that's not Esau in the circumstances of peaceable manner. Now, and they did bear witness that the Edomites and the other heathens were persecuting the Israelites, all right, and were about to try to exterminate them, as the scripture says. Continue to read.
Verse 26, and how that many of them were shut up in Bozrah and Bozar and Alima, Kashfar, Mekit, and Canaan. All these cities are strong and great.
Right. These were great ancient cities. All right, great ancient cities that the heathen had established in the times of old. All right, because you have to understand that Esau, Edom, and the Arabs, you still had certain sects of them still living in that direct vicinity as the times of antiquity, but a large part of them also migrated. That's where you had the Greeks, the Seleucid Empire, and the Ptolemaic Empire. Those were Edomites, but you still also had Edomites living in the land of Edom. That's where you get Herod, the Idumean, you know, which were Edomites living in Idumea, all right? And you still had Edomites who came and took other customs and cultures and called themselves by other names, you know?
You want to skip down?
Yeah, just go down 32.
Verse 32, he said unto his host...
No, go 28.
Verse 28, hereupon Judas and his host turned suddenly by the way of the wilderness unto Bozrah, and when he had won the city, he slew all the males with the edge of the sword and took all their spoils and burned the city with fire.
Right, and he burned the city with fire. And this is the price to pay. You heathens are going to pay. You're going to pay. It's just, regardless of how I feel or how you feel about it, and that's just I'm speaking to you as a man. It doesn't matter. Yeah. It's going to happen because that's according to prophecy. All right? Just as it was in the times of old. You're not going to continue to be able to trample on the Lord's chosen people. You know?
Yep. Then I wanted to quickly make a side point while Judas is over with Jonathan on this journey in the wilderness, you know, fighting these battles. He gave the commandment earlier in the chapter. You know, we skipped over that part. with Simeon and Azariah, he gave a commandment for them not to, he charged them not to make war with the heathen at that moment. He advised them, of course, through the Spirit of the Lord.
Yeah.
Just to pinpoint, that significant matter, because it's going to come up later in the chapter.
Yeah, that's very significant in the matter of balance, because even Yahweh Shah said, "Put up thy sword, for he that dealeth with the sword shall perish with the sword." I mean, that's not saying don't defend yourself, but it's saying everything has an appointed time.
Yeah.
It wasn't time for them to go blazing glory, try to make themselves a name.
Yeah.
It's the purpose of Yahweh by Shem Yahshua. That's what we seek to fulfill. Okay. And whatever amount that requires, that's what we should accomplish.
Mm-hmm. Kind of want to see now verse 32.
Yeah.
Verse 32, 1 Maccabees chapter 5, verse 32. He said unto his host, "Fight this day for your brethren." So he went forth behind him in 3 companies who sounded their trumpets and cried with the prayer.
Sound the trumpet, and that's what we're doing through the Spirit.
Exactly.
We're prophesying, we're teaching, we're warning, we're admonishing. That's sounding the trumpet. That this trumpet is symbolic of the true trumpet, which is the testimony of Yahweh Shai being announced abroad.
Verse 34, then the host of Timothy, knowing that it was Maccabees, fled from him, wherefore he smote them with a great slaughter, so that there were killed of them that day about 8,000 men.
They were chewing through the heathens, man. 8,000 men one day slaughtered by the Israelites, by the will and power of Yahweh by Shem Yahshua. Yep. And these records are true.
Exactly. You want to skip down again?
What verse are you on?
34 or 35 now.
Yeah, you can go down to verse 37.
Yeah. Verse 37. After these things gathered Timothy another host and encamped against Raphan beyond the brook. So Judas sent men to espy the host, who brought him word, saying, all the heathen that be around about us are assembled unto them, even a very great host. He have also hired the Arabians to help them, and have pitched their tents beyond the brook, ready to come and fight against thee. Upon this Judas went to meet them.
Right. And Judas went to meet them. So we coming to the gates of the nobles through the Spirit.
And they have the heathen had to get a greater army. Then that's a cut. Because he said you fighting Esau and Idumea, he had to go get the Arabians. But Esau's the Arabs. That's a cut.
Yeah, when people fail to realize the Arabs and Esau live right next to each other.
Right.
So when you hear Arabian, first of all, Arabian, Arab means essentially it can mean desert, and it also means mix. Mm-hmm. Right? Now the Arabs were living in that vicinity, just like Esau. Mm-hmm. For instance, a large part of the landmass that the heathen was dwelling in, like Samaria, all that used to be Israelite territory. Mm-hmm. But you have wars, you have migrations, so you have those different heathens that have taken each other's cities back and forth. You have to take that in consideration. The Arabs are Ishmael.
Right.
All right. Okay. They were all in that same vicinity. You're dealing with Petra, the land of Bozrah. All of that in the same vicinity.
Verse 40. Then Timothy said unto the captains of his host, when Judas and his host come near the brook, if he pass over first unto us, we shall not be able to withstand him, for he will mightily prevail against us. But if he be afraid and camp beyond the river, we shall go over unto him and prevail against him.
Mm-hmm. You got it.
You want to go down a little bit?
Yeah. Go down to continue.
Verse 42. Now when Judas came near the brook, he called.
Go down to verse 44.
Yeah, verse 44. Verse 44. It reads, but they took the city and burned the temple with all that were therein. Thus were Canaan subdued, neither could they stand any longer before Judas.
Right. So, long story short, in that situation, you know, the heathen was discomfited. And what you're witnessing or reading or listening to is records of back to back to back to back wins and triumphs over the heathen. And also some hardships and struggles and pain. We deal with the seven the seven children, sons, and the mother, and you know, Eleazar, and many different other scriptures in which the Israelites were wrongfully persecuted and killed through that persecution. You know, but it was all this. It's all a part of the perfecting of a better tabernacle.
Yep.
You know.
Verse 45. Then Judas gathered together all the Israelites that were in the country of Gilead, from the least unto the greatest, even their wives and their children and their stuff, a very great host, to the end they might come into the land of Judea.
Right. So he gathered all the people and brought them back to the Judea, which is like essentially the safe haven. It's the capital in those regards, because you had different heathen garrisons and different nations having fortresses in our land. So, you know, we were in perplexed circumstances. You can go down to verse 50.
Verse 50, so the soldiers pitched and assaulted the city all that day and all that night.
Right, because these heathens refused to let us part between their city and the city who had walls very great on both sides. Go ahead.
It says, it reads, at the length of the city was delivered into his hands, who then slew all the males with the edge of the sword, and razed the city, and took the spoils thereof, and passed through the city over them that were slain. After this went they over Jordan into the great plain before Bethsan.
Go down to verse 54.
Yeah, verse 54. It reads, so they went up to Mount Zion with joy and gladness, where they offered burnt offerings, because not one of them were slain until they had returned in peace.
Beautiful.
Because when that heathen, they said the city was fortified, which means, you know, it was going to it was well defended. It was great, man. That's why they were so happy, like, hey, give praise to Yahweh Shem Shah. Right. They had the Lord. It took for them to have the Lord on their side to make it through.
Right,
that, man.
Exactly.
And you show they use wisdom now, because they said, let's go through peace. You know, they asked them, you know, we can go through. The heathen hating the Israelites, of course. You know how that went down. You know, but continuing on you want to keep continuing on verse 55. Now, what time as Judas and Jonathan were in the land of Gilead, and Simeon, his brother in Galilee before Ptolemais, Joseph the son of Zacharias and Azarias, captains of the garrisons, heard of the valiant acts and warlike deeds which they had done.
Now, this is a admonishment or an example of what not to do and the spirit not to be in. Okay, just because you see, don't covet another man's glory.
Yep.
You know, if that's his lot at that appointed time, then let that be his lot. The Lord will grant you what is required or what he has subscribed in due season.
Exactly.
You got it.
Verse 57, wherefore they said, let us also get us a name and go fight against the heathen.
Don't seek a name. That's not the proper spirit. To be seeking your own name or your own preeminence. We should be prioritizing the glory of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua B'Shem Makakadash.
And go fight against the heathen that are round about us. So when they had given charge to the garrison that was with them, they went toward Jamnia. Then came Gorgias and his men out of the city to fight against them. And so it was that Joseph and Azarias were put to flight and pursued unto the borders of Judea, and there were slain that day of the people of Israel about 2,000 men. Verse 61.
These men were slain because of the negligence and the vanity that these individuals were seeking.
Yeah. Take heed. Of course, it's taking heed to the spirit and staying out that lane of fire. Verse 61. Thus were there a great overthrow among the children of Israel, because they were not obedient unto Judas and his brethren, but thought to do some valiant act. See, they took it upon themselves that they didn't take heed to the spirit. They just looked at those as men doing warlike deeds. They like, man, I'm about to be like that, man. I'm about to turn this bitch up. But it wasn't of the spirit, because if it was of the spirit, man, they would have prevailed. As the Lord did as many times in the same chapter. But it's balance to it, man. All right, it had to get punished for not taking heed to the spirit through Judas and the brother.
You go down 62.
Verse 62. Moreover, these men came not of the seed of those by whose hand deliverance was given unto Israel.
They were not of the Hasmonean dynasty. These were other Israelites, but they weren't of that stock that deliverance was destined to be through, which were the Hasmoneans.
Verse 63. Howbeit the man Judas and his brethren were greatly renowned in the sight of all Israel and of all the heathen, wheresoever their name was heard of, insomuch as the people assembled unto them with joyful acclamations.
Beautiful. Keep going.
Afterward went Judas forth with his brethren and fought against the children of Esau in the land toward the south, where he smote Hebron and the towns thereof.
See, where he smote Hebron, this is how you know that the heathens are in different land masses, because of migration and war. Hebron was a city during the time of David. That was a city that was ruled by Israel. King David was crowned in Hebron. That was a chief city in Israel in the ancient world, in antiquity. But at that point, you had the Edomites ruling Hebron. You see? So that whole Esau's Arab, you got to understand migration, you got to understand proximities. Right? Ishmael are the Arabs. Esau is the so-called white man.
Continuing on, in the towns thereof, and pulled down the fortresses of it, and burned the towers thereof round about. From thence he removed to go into the land of the Philistines, and passed through Samaria. At that time certain priests, desirous to show their valor, were slain in battle, for that they went out to fight unadvisedly. So Judas turned to Exotos in the land of the Philistines, and when he had pulled down their altars and burned their carved images with fire and spoiled their cities, he returned into the land of Judea.
All right, beautiful. So that has been part 4.
Yeah, that's part 4. Yeah, that's part 4 right now.
So Lord willing, this was edifying. Give all praises, honor, and glory and worship to
Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash.
Shalom, and keep the faith.
Shalom.